seagulls follow the shore, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you.
And as we say now in my country, they brought the bus and they left the bus in front of the goal.
And the guy's talking absolute nonsense. Never heard so much rubbish in my life.
Normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
I'm telling you, don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
This is the T.N.F. Bring it on. I like the T.N.F. It's the night we hand over the keys to you. And you can get all your points. And I've been starring a few since I've recently learned how to do that. So there's a few comments already coming in that we're going to be discussing on the bus tonight. I'm joined by a stellar lineup. As always on a Thursday. We always go for 4 on a Thursday. You know, the weekend's coming up. So that's why we do it. And we have got with us the judge, Mark Kearney. We have got Johnny Logue. And Steve O'Mac joins us as well. What is happening, lads? How are we all doing?
I'm doing very well, mate. Yourself? How are you guys doing?
Good. I'm
yeah,
good.
Doing all good down here.
I like it. Sporting the B as well. Honestly, slept in it last night. Stinking the BO. Still wearing it. I'm only kidding.
Looks good, mate.
Well, what you drink tonight, Steve-O? Is that cola or Guinness?
Jack Daniels and Coke. Pint.
Pint of, please. That's my kind of guy. I totally understand that logic. Why keep going for a wee half where you could just pour a pint in it and you didn't need to go back and forward to the fridge? Totally with you on that, Steve-O. That's why you're on the bus, mate.
That does me, mate.
I don't know what's in that though, Mark. Let's be honest. Nobody gets to test that before you come on, so we never know if it's really Highland Spring or not, especially with some of your wild takes. Nah, I'm only kidding. Johnny, what's happening, big man? It's not quite the morning, it's the evening. Pint of Stella in hand.
Well, it's not Stella tonight. It's on a Stella glass, but it's not the Stella. It's some German Aldi stuff. I get the cheap stuff through the week, keep the good stuff for the weekend. Not that I'm getting many weekends at the minute, but the off this weekend, I think. So
yeah, you're just grafting. You're just working hard, Johnny, and I get that. And honestly, see, if I don't care what Tuesday it is, you text me saying can't make the bus on the Wednesday. By the way, Bhoycie, I'm like, no worries. Sound. Hopefully, David says the same. I can dodge it. Anyway, enough of all that shit. All that good stuff time. All that good stuff means the 93 that are already on the bus. Inside the first 5 minutes, 93 on the bus already. They love a Thursday as well. So if you've not hit the like button, smash it right now. Do it. If you want to subscribe, that's always appreciated. 3,467 have. If you want to become a Bhoycie Bus member, like Scott Cameron, like Joe Brown, like Gary Brown, like Alan Woods, like Jim C, like Phil McGinley. Always makes me laugh. Sean the Mac, Kevin 14, Stephen Murdoch, loads of yous. It's $1.99 a month, totally optional. It helps keep the wheels on the road. Now remember, the deadline is next Friday. If you want to buy one of these, I nearly brought it up on the screen there. I'm wearing one. Great. So the tops have arrived. The podcast team are going to be getting theirs. I'll be sending them out over the weekend to the boys. A big thanks to our sponsors of the shirt, Har Barber, as well. You've played a massive role in getting the first batch of shirts in. You guys, your order will be submitted a week on Saturday, Sunday, once we've got the final dregs of orders coming in, which I'm sure we'll get a wee spike once you start seeing Big Steve-O's guns in this. I'm telling you, those elasticated sleeves, Steve-O, they're right up your street, mate. Right, anyway, also, if you're feeling peckish, next time you want to watch the bus, do it with a pie. Piesports.com, a tasty 12.5% discount at the checkout when you quote bus 1888. Covered everything? Good to go? You better believe it. Right, okay. We're just going to back straight into the forum tonight, lads, if that's okay with you. Now, Mark, you are kind of a staple, I would say now. So we'll come at you first tonight. We'll go you, Steve-O, Johnny. That's the order we're going to go in. You couldn't even see me pointing at us there. So but yes, we will just crack on with the forum because there's loads of brilliant comments already coming in by the passengers, and that's what it's all about on the bus. Right. Let's go straight for it. Kevin 14. Is Kalmak, Moy, and Atati good enough for the Champions League? I think they're the best midfield three we've had for some time. My point of view on that is, of course, I would still expect all areas of the park to be looked at. Moy will be another year older next year. Not that he plays with a particular amount of pace. But in terms of the midfield three, it's interesting, Mark, that now when you talk about the midfield three, it's not O'Reilly in that sort of first choice trio, which kind of was the case for the best part of 12 months. And then obviously, since the turn of the year, since the World Cup, Aaron Moyes kind of came in and took that jersey off him. Kevin's excited about that midfield three. He wants to see it. Is it good enough for the Champions League?
It depends what you mean by that. Are they good enough to feature in a Celtic team competing in the Champions League? I'd probably say that they're good enough, especially Cal McGregor and Hattati there. I think they're definitely probably the top we can get just now with their budgets, you know what I mean? Whether they're good enough to compete at a level where they're going to be challenging for first and second place remains to be seen. I think there's too many question marks over the actual squad depth when it comes to a reality rather than just on a bit of paper. I think their squad's more than good enough to win a domestic treble, definitely. Champions League football is a totally different kettle of fish, and we've seen Shakhtar Donetsk get those 7 goals tonight against was it PSV? I think Rangers put about 5 past them last year or 2 years ago. So I don't think the level is narrowing because Celtic have got a group of players that we all think is good enough. You know, I think the barometer is how you're performing in the Champions League season after season. Cal McGregor's got another level. I think the guy's a top class player. I think Atati's got another 2 or 3 levels. So I think he's on the march to becoming one of the best midfielders we've had in a very long time. Moy, I think I agree with you, Bhoycie. I think he's going to be a year older come next year, but doesn't mean he's going to be. Doesn't mean he's not going to compete for Celtic. But the question is, are they good enough to compete for Celtic, to play for Celtic? 110%. It's a midfield three that I fancy very highly. Are they good enough to compete in the Champions League? At Celtic standard, aye, they're good enough. At Champions League standard, in terms of making a dent in that competition, I don't think there's a player in their squad really that's going to make dents in the Champions League. I mean, that's the bare facts of the matter. You know what I mean? Kyogo maybe perform at a higher level than what we seen last season, albeit he didn't have much game time really, only a few games to shine. But for Celtic, aye, but in the grander scale, no, not really, no.
Steve-O, Mark's already put out the line of the night, hasn't he? Not one of our players are good enough to make a dent in the Champions League. He starts as he needs to go on this point.
No, you know what I mean. Oh, God. I get it bad enough.
But Steve-O, in terms of the midfield three, I think Mark's got a point. When we look at it, we've got to look at it from, are they good enough for Celtic in the Champions League. And I think that debate is slightly different as to can they have an impact for Celtic in the Champions League. Last year, this season, I should say, the narrative seemed to change from our own support as the Champions League group sort of unfolded. If you remember the draw being made, it was quite universal that we should be going for second place in that group. We've seen some of the results. Some of our teams that did make it to Europe after Christmas in that group have achieved in the early rounds, or the early knockout rounds, I should say. A couple of 7-0 defeats in there for both Leipzig and Shakhtar. I suppose that would suggest that it wasn't the best Champions League campaign in the world. You know, it was more of an opportunity, like everyone was kind of saying at the beginning, Steve-O. Do you think that midfield three, though, do you think that would be what Ange would be looking to go with next year in the Champions League and try and have a sort of better outcome in the group?
I mean, I kind of echo some of the sentiments that Mark's put out there. This are they good enough thing, right? That's I hate the word, but it's subjective, right? Are they good enough for their squad? Absolutely. Can you improve on them? You can always improve on players, right? But at this moment in time, are they solid enough players? Are they delivering when they're on it? Absolutely. So that's basically, they're the nailed on. Moy's the one that's maybe there's a wee bit of wiggle room there. The likes of Wata, that might be the role that he eventually takes up and he might develop into that. But at this moment in time, that's the midfield. Are they good enough? They're certainly good enough to get in the Celtic team. I don't see at this moment in time anybody that's a better option. So yes, they're good enough. But are players good enough for the Champions League? No matter what team, whether it's Celtic, Rangers, PSV, whoever it is, it's irrelevant because players help, but tactics and performances are what get you points. So if you look at some of the teams that you would argue aren't as good as Celtic that have done better in the Champions League, is it because their players are better or just because they took the chances and adapted themselves a bit better? And that's probably what we didn't do, unfortunately. It was all about chance taking. But if you look at the whole body of work in the Champions League, the performances in themselves were pretty good. So there was a lot of hope there, but it's just joining the dots and putting it together. So you'd like to think that we are setting campaign behind it, with these players playing together, being a wee bit more drilled, a wee bit more oiled, game management maybe better. They can make a better fist at it. But then if they go into the Champions League next year and it's more of the same, that's when the hard questions start to get asked. So I think, are they good enough? Yes, because they're good enough for what we've got. They're at the level that we can put on the park at this moment in time. And to say maybe a Watt will be the wee sort of anomaly there and he'll feature more. But Cal McGregor and Hatate, they're the stick-ons and the outstanding players. So, it's a good foundation to build on, isn't it?
I think you're spot on, Steve-O, there. Johnny, it's a midfield three that became in the second half of the season. It's been very much Celtic's first choice midfield three. Next level is the Champions League, though, Johnny. We talk about in the breakfast bar all the time. That'll be the yardstick Andrew's measured by. Will that be the midfield that he sticks with come the next Champions League campaign? Good question for Kevin 14, by the way.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think to repeat what Steve-O and Mark have said, Hatate and Calmac are pretty much stick-ons. Moy, it just shows you how quickly things change in football. This time last year, we would never have dreamed of ruling O'Reilly out of the team. 3 months ago, we didn't think Moy was good enough to play for us in the league, never mind Champions League. And we need to wait and to see what's going to happen in the summer with what we do, transfer activity, ins and outs, because I think there's going to be a bit of both. Certainly, I hope stronger than last summer's one was, where we've discussed that to death, as to whether it was as strong as we initially thought it was going to be. But I think Moy's probably the one out of those three who might not be a regular Champions League starter for us. Because as I said, I think things will change very quickly. And as I said, 3 months ago, we didn't think he was good enough for domestic games, never mind Champions League. Certainly changed after the World Cup, certainly, but it just shows how quickly it will change. And it's a difficult one to call on that one. But McGregor and Hatate, they're stick-ons to be in that. Unless, of course, something happens transfer-wise with Hatate. Hopefully not, though. But
yeah, of course.
And I haven't seen enough of the games in the last few weeks to really comment on how Moy's been playing, but I think he's the one that might drop to the bench if anything, like, you know.
Well, there's going to be a busy summer. We know that for a fact. It's going to be a busy summer. So, I mean, I just feel that right now, when you look at the midfield three, it's an interesting capacity. We just don't know how Ange is going to approach the summer. It could be any of them in a shiggly peg in this squad. It could be any of them. And this guy's ruthless. So I suppose the hypothetical question that Kevin was putting to us in terms of this midfield three, I think we're all kind of in agreement, Kevin, that as far as Celtic's midfield three could go, we've probably got in that trio as good as, at this moment in time, as good as what we think we can get at Celtic at this particular moment. But like I say, I expect a whirlwind summer transfer window. I think we're going to be, in disbelief at times with some of the shock departures, and maybe, by the way, and hopefully, of course, some of the arrivals as well. But I think Ange will be gearing us up for more unexpected adventures in this window. A bit like January. I think January is a bit of a teaser towards that. Stone Outlaw comes in. We're going to stay on the midfield theme, Judge Kearney. Have you seen the shooting BS? No mention about Kent or Sakala's dives, but Atati seems to be getting it a wee bit tighter. Or is that really the case? Are the media driving that marker? Are a few people just a wee bit bitter?
Well, they're jealous bastards. Actually, if you see the replay, it's not conclusive that he dived. You know what I mean? You've seen Kyogo going down, and it's only the kind of one camera that you see it particularly good. And I think the guy touched him. But the same weekend, Ryan Kent done a wee step over. I don't know what he was trying to do, but he just fell his arse. No media attention. You know what I mean? And you talk about a team here who play for free kicks at Ibrox, and not going to say about their players, but I'll stick to Hattie. I think when the whole of Scottish football, the press, our teams, fans, etc., they've got to find any wee margin they can to slag Celtic, because they can't slag their attention to detail on the park, they can't slag their work ethic, they can't slag put it down to luck. You know what I mean? So they've got to find something to slag Celtic for. Is Hatati good enough to squish this league every day of the week? Does he have to dive? Nah, I don't think so. It's the same stuff we had with Kyogo. Kyogo does go down a bit easy, but do you know something? When we're seeing players over Europe, does anybody talk about the guys at Real Madrid that go down and hide their face when they were kicked in the arse? No, they don't. They look at their ability and just see that as a side of the game that unfortunately is part of everyday football now. We don't like it as such, but I'm going to say Celtic have got a team full of cheats or divers, far from it. I think Celtic are too nice. I think Celtic don't play the dirty side of the game enough for me. I think the free kick on halfway line the free kick was actually given for Kyogo's foul. No, the foul on Hatati. The referee brought it back because he felt Hatati was fouled, and actually I think he was fouled as well. I think the press in this country just like to stick any wee bit of shit on the Celtic as they can. But do you know something? Just when I mentioned Ryan Kent there was a stat that the papers put on the night saying that Rangers are the top performers in one stat. And it's not a stat that will surprise anybody in this pod. The stat is in Europe, they're the team that crosses the ball into the box more than anybody else. And that just
am I right though in thinking, Mark? Did they not, Mark, if I'm right in thinking, record a record number of crosses in one game and they still dropped points in it or something earlier this season?
40 odd crosses, I think it was a game of 2 this season. And do you know something?
I'm sure
anybody that's watched Rangers for a minute can tell you that the tactic is get it wide and cross it in. You know what I mean? And just hope for chaos. Celtic are just play through in the midfield, they overlaps, you name it, and the press don't pick up on that side. But we're not surprised. We're talking about a press here that are built on bullshit and lies, you know what I mean? And this is what happens. Bhoycie, a narrative can be spun, any narrative that can be spun that's anti-Celtic or can portray Celtic as anything other than a brilliant football team, they'll lap it up, soak it up and soak it in because they're smelly bastards. Simple as that.
No, that's fair enough. Steve-O, Martin up into these words tonight. And we love it, by the way, because I think the attack thing's a bit of a shambles. I remember him lying down, curled up, looking, doing all this sort of stuff. Remember that, Steve-O? That was Mr. Sakala, was it not? We've not seen anything like that from Atati. And his whole time at Celtic, I've never, ever known this guy to be even anything I would consider a diver in any way, shape or form. If anything, he rides challenges really well. Yeah. He makes players look daft when he doesn't even touch the ball. I know that was Johnny's favourite trick that he did. He didn't touch the ball and took 2 players out. I mean, this guy's, if they're trying to forge a reputation or get some sort of stigma attached to a player, they've picked the wrong one. The problem they've got with Atati is, Steve, well, let's just get this absolutely clear, is he's too fucking good. That's the problem they've got with him.
Aye, but look, you'd be forgiven if you didn't remember that there's back-to-back games against Rangers coming up pretty soon. Oh, there's a league game, and then shortly thereafter, there's a semi-final to take care of. So this is what happens, isn't it? Like, listen, between the shock horror, the Japanese guys didn't get picked, the league shite, they want to leave, and then he's a diver, and anything else in between. It's quite funny, isn't it, that when we get to this stage where there's a game coming out, something comes out, it's, oh, he might leave, he could be sold, such and such is interested, he's a diver. It's nonsense, right? I actually seen it coming up, and they wheel out all the classics, don't they? Some idiot ex-referee or something saying, and he should get a red card, and should he play in the next game and all this stuff. It's dross. It's embarrassing. That's pretty much where I'm at with it. For me, it's a complete and utter non-event. I take no notice of it at all. I don't even get the space in the reading whatever article or whatever it is that's there, because to me it carries no weight whatsoever. And they've picked the wrong one. Hitati's a robust player. He gets in about, he's combative, he's far from a diver. As Mark says, maybe guys like Abada, perhaps, or as we've seen before, Kyogo, are maybe a wee bit lightweight and they get down. I'm not condoning it, we don't want to see it, but a diver in Hitati is probably the last one that you can see it. And this is, if anything, maybe a wee bit too nice, We've seen that stuff, and it's a wee bit classic, like the Lundstrom shouting at him, and he just puts the hand over and stuff, and it's all calm, and it looks cool as fuck on a picture to say that's who we are. But at the same time, I'd like to see a wee bit more of the niggle in them, and I think out of the Japanese guys, maybe Maeda of all folks got that. He likes a wee knock and then walking away, but nah, listen, I don't take any notice of it whatsoever. For me, it's a non-event. I'm not getting tied up in it. And we could go to the cows come home and say, what about when he dived there? Or everybody forget the Morelos thing when they were doing the comparisons with, Kyogo. And they're like, well, it wasn't too long ago, Ryan Kent or Morelos. That nobody notices. But for me, it's simply just the standard. There's a couple of important games coming up. Let's try and shake the tree a wee bit and maybe get folk talking about things in the desperate hope that it'll create a context to a game, but it's not going to take your eyes off the ball on the field. I don't think that the team get involved in petty shit like that, to be honest.
I agree with you, Steve. I mean, when it comes to these players, Johnny, I go back to what I finished my last wee rant on with Steve with there. I think the problem with attack is he's too good. And what I get out of all of this sort of silly narratives that you see, Johnny, is a wee bit of fear. I can smell it. They're going, fuck. Even when they're not at their best, they're better than us, right? And by the way, the chances of us not being at our best again in the next game, the next time we play them, twice in April, by the way, still one more to go after that. I mean, for me, I just look at it and go, we won't always not be at our best. And there's a hiding coming your way if we do click against them. And that is the reality. So these sort of subplots that Steve was talking about there, they're almost a necessity for them to try and look what it is Ange's built, to somehow, throw mud at it for some way to make it look like, oh, we're not all that, and maybe there's an undercurrent of cheating going on the pitch, gamesmanship. These guys don't need to do any of that sort of thing, Johnny. They don't need to resort to all this stuff, and I actually think it's clutching at straws, to put it mild, is it not?
It is just exactly what they put it on there. It's just bullshit. I mean, like, I haven't seen the incident that you are talking about, because as you know, Russell, I've been working down at Heathrow in an area where I'm not even allowed to take my phone in. So I had to sit and suffer the League Cup final, didn't know what was going on. The game on Saturday, didn't know what was going on. An absolute nightmare. But Hitati's the last man on that team that would be doing any diving in that. Somebody else already said Kyogo's far too polite. Kyogo winds me up when he's always picking up somebody and apologising, and we pass it out. I'm saying, just leave him. He's not your mate. Just get on with the game. But no, it's all crap. It's bullshit. And as you said, I think we could say that we've played Rangers twice now. We won the cup. We drew the two each game. And we were nowhere near our best. And it's just kind of happened 3 times on the trot. We are going to hit top gear because we play in the league before the semi-final, don't we?
Celtic Park in the league first. I mean, it's coming round soon. I mean, you've got to remember there's actually obviously the international break. We've got Hibs, then we come back, Ross County away.
So we've got basically 2 games to play in the league before we play. Yep. We're going to click it back. We're going to click it at Celtic Park, and we're going to give them a right doing. Because, like you said, we're not going to not fully turn up 3 times on the trot. They're too good to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that. I just think that the law of averages will play out. We will click against them again, and they'll be hoping it's in the league game probably. I mean, that's how ridiculous it is. They'll be picking a game where if they can click in that one and not another. Whereas we're wanting Celtic to get in top gear against them every single time because we've got absolutely no fear about I can't wait for the next one to roll round. I'm all for it already, and I think when you see stuff like that, it gives me more confidence that there is this gap that they all want to deny. It gives me more confidence because you look at narratives like that and just go, but you're talking shite. Like, where have you even came up with that? What's the reasoning behind it? What's the agenda? And I think probably it's just to try and naysay what is, whether they like it or not, a far, far better team. Mark, we'll get you kicked off on one of your favourite topics. David Kelly, good to have you on the bus, David, as always. Always good value in the comments. And he's saying, why do the lads think that the board are hoarding cash? Our coaching setup, training facilities and stadium could all be improved very easily. Not to mention the obvious first team improvements. I mean, Mark, you've got to take whether it's holding cash and folk like that sort of terminology, that's fine. It's David's gift though to put it anyway. And I think what we do need to remember is there is a cash surplus at Celtic, a cash reserve, if you like. I've said, vocally on here plenty of times, I feel the rainy day came and we came out relatively unscathed with very good insurance plans in place, which make up part of, obviously the very, very good-looking half-year accounts that Celtic recently published. There's obviously going to be another wave of money coming in, and that'll be in the form of Champions League money, whether it be prize money, TV money, etc. There probably will be some sort of sell-on fee coming in for either Tierney or Frimpong, if not both, this summer also. Plus your usual wave of sold-out season tickets, which I've got every faith will happen again. And you look at it and you go, okay, it's brilliant being a cash-rich club and it's brilliant being run properly, but you're going to have fans like David accusing it of being hoarding cash if you don't start to see relative increases in spending when undeniably the income is increasing at such a rate. I mean, the turnover is going to smash 100 million, I think, for this season. We've been down that road before, where we couldn't afford John McGinns of the world and we turned over £100 million. That can't be afforded to allowed to come again. And I don't like to see David using that language that we're hoarding cash, not because I'm disagreeing with him necessarily, but it just shows some of the fans are still a wee bit wary as to what Celtic's intentions will be. In the summer, I think we've all used the phrase at some point across the pod, we need to tool the club up for the Champions League this year. If we're not going to do it now, we never will, sort of thing.
Well, the last figure showed me about £50 million in the bank sitting there, you know what I mean? And you're running the excuses for the club now. Come the summertime, they're going to have 54,000 season ticket holders, 3 new strips coming out, and all the other glitz and glamour that Celtic sell. I mean, God, the last week and a half, they brought out a 4th kit they're not going to wear, and a new range of training wear that's only going to last 5 weeks till the season finishes. Celtic are making money hand their fist, and I also read that seemingly there might be a 10-50% increase in the season tickets, which wouldn't surprise me. So, the price I'm talking about. So, you've got to run out of excuses. That 50 million's got to turn into 85 million very soon, you know what I mean? And we'll get a Champions League jackpot. It's going to be guaranteed if we win the league this season. And what you've got to do is, if next season, if the season after next isn't going to be a case of guaranteed qualification, it should be you be champions, you've got to give yourself a good chance of getting that money again, a good chance of progressing the club. But that comes with investment. There's also much that Ange Postecoglou can do. There's also many times he can get in and spend £2 million a player and you go, wow, he's worth 15. I mean, that well does run dry, and I think that the excuses are running dry now, and we've had this before with Celtic, and they've looked so good after the park, and they thought, right, where's the next level of investment? And then you've saw us get to Seville and bring in Stephen Pearson. You've saw us get to the last 16 with Stratton and bring in I can't even think of a player, but you're not talking about players that's going to improve the club, put that way, you know what I mean? If they did improve the club, I'd remember their names straight away, and I don't know if this is going to be the season, because I'm going to in my head that if there ever was going to be a manager that just pushes the boundaries, it is going to be this manager. This is 2023, and we've spoken about it before. We can't keep on saying that money we spent in 2000 for Chris Sutton is too much money to be spending in 2023. It doesn't work that way. Is £10 million players the norm at Celtic? No, it's not, but it should be. And I don't know how we can sit and pretend that we're a big, massive club and we can pretend that we want to make a push for the Champions League. For me, that's just a campaign slogan. Because if the club really felt that way, they wouldn't be bringing in £2 million players, guys for Kilmarnock, guys for Hibs and all the rest of it. We'd be out to the transfer market. All right, we're bringing in players that are doing really well for a great manager, but we'd be getting that manager. Like I've said before, like when you bring a player in for a certain mark or a certain age bracket, you're having to spend that time to get them to the next level. So I think you should just bypass that stage in their career and buy them when they're at that next level, when they're touching Champions League quality or touching at least the very limit to what Celtic can afford. Celtic don't do that habitually. They never have, they never will. But I think the excuses are running dry for the Celtic fans who seem to think that by spending an extra £15 million, the club's going to go bankrupt. Celtic have never in their history ever been close to bankruptcy through spending. That's the one thing everybody's got to get clear. When Celtic nearly went bust in the early 90s, is because the debt get called in by the bank. So they ran out of trust with the board. The board was £6 million, which wasn't a lot of money. They ran out of trust with the board, and they wanted capital to rest against the debt, which nobody in the board had. And they had a guy like Terry Cassidy who didn't have a clue what he was doing. You know what I mean? People on the board like White and the Kellys in a dynasty that were just heap bangers that didn't have a clue how to run a business. That's not going to happen to Celtic now. By spending £15 million or £20 million in 2023, I think that's a bare minimum. A Celtic support that pump in £110 million a season in the club. Like with all the revenue, I think that's the least we deserve, mate, to be honest with you. But it remains to be seen.
No, I think that's fair as well. And interestingly enough, I'm watching the live comments coming, Steve, and a lot of them are focused obviously on, they're back Ange, if Ange wants to be backed and things like this. Everyone's instantly thinking of the first team. Let's go back to David's original point, because Steve, what he's actually saying is the coaching setup, the training facilities. Am I right in thinking Celtic don't have an indoor full-size football pitch? Is that right?
It's supposed to be golden, man.
If they not got a inside Astro somewhere like it's down at Tory Glen.
Someone might have said it on the bus, lying bastards, whoever they are. But if you look at actually David's general point here, it's not necessarily just the first team. But of course, people are going to start going, when you've bought a fourth kit, for example, we could talk about that a wee bit as well. The fourth kit comes out, it was a bit distasteful to some people. I understand the point, though. If there's a demand, it's a supply and demand business. If Celtic can go, I think folk will buy it. Then that's you know what I mean? That's that makes sense. If there's people who can't afford it, they don't have to buy it. And I get that, by the way, and it's a bit shit that you're missing out on a shirt. But if Celtic can sell whatever their target of shirt sales will be for it, and they can get that over the line, they'll make a tidy profit on it, and it was a worthwhile exercise. But of course, that then comes round and bites you on the arse the other way if people aren't seeing the investment across the football club. Now, it's easy for us because we're obsessed with watching the team to instantly go, that means we want £5-10 million players and we want them now. And I get all that. But David's point's a lot more broader than that. The stadium could be improved easily. The training facilities can be improved. I want another indoor pitch. And the coaching setup, things like this. These are all areas of the club we are going to want to see marked improvements on whilst that money's sitting there, because questions will be asked. If you keep forking out for 4 kits a year now, and that's suddenly turned into nearly spending as much on kits as what you are a season ticket, you put thousands into that just as an individual now per year. And of course you want to see some sort of return for that, ideally on the park, but there's other ways you can affect what's happening on the park with these other areas that David's talking about there.
Yep. This is a good point, and it's something that I've had sort of very firm beliefs on for a while now. So to cast back over the years, I'm not talking like whenever Rangers went the league and all that stuff, right? Because we all know we could have spent more, and the whole speculate to accumulate, better on the park, domestic takes care of itself, potential to do better in Europe. That was a missed opportunity. So let's not flog that dead horse right now. In terms of the money situation, this was my opinion on it, and it won't really, my thoughts might not come to fruition until the end of the summer. I say January next year, the following January at the latest. Now, I want to go back to the COVID season. Now, we had insurances and everything in place, but we had a well-known banked amount of money, which that with insurance policies combined allowed us to come out of that pretty much with our noses clean, almost at a break-even position, which is unheard of in most leagues and most teams. I think with the money that's been getting banked or hoarded, I think that's simply based on the board realising how valuable that money was in a real unseen crisis. So I think they've wanted to top it back up to a minimum of that level that they had there, knowing that that was 2 good seasons worth of running costs. But our board being our board, probably been overcautious and saying, right, well, that was 30 million. Right, well, let's make it 40 million. Let's make it 45 million.
I hear you.
Which is now what we've got sitting here. So my point being is as we bring out these ridiculous training kits, these ridiculous fourth kits and stuff, and we're just milking the well constantly, then you're going to have, prize money for competition, sponsors that come with that, then Champions League money, etc., etc. That's going to grow exponentially. So my theory is that 50 million, albeit you'll still be eating into it a wee bit with just general running costs, come the end of the season, that could be, I don't know, just plucking numbers out there, it could be 42 million, right? But then with everything else, it gets rammed on top of it, it goes up. So I think what you'll see a small amount of spending in the summer, and then Champions League money, everything at the top end, and that's topped up again. January, you maybe see an improved amount of spending again. So I think it'll be more split. You could argue the toss that come the January, that's going to be too late, but that's just the way I believe it to go. In terms of spending elsewhere, I don't foresee us spending on infrastructure, to be totally honest.
Pitch, casino.
For casino, aye. The stuff like the hotel and museum and all that, that's pie in the sky. That is, for me, that is file under super casino, right? I really do. I think if Celtic want to go into that, they need to be thinking outside the box. I know I'm going to be tangent. They need to be thinking outside the box, and they need to be thinking about external investors or partners, like in conjunction with, say, a major hotel brand like Hilton or somebody who want involved in this and bring it in. So it can't be done on their own, because that 50 million, that wouldn't even be a drop in that you couldn't even build a hotel with that, let's be honest, right?
I get you.
Let's be honest. So it's pointless looking at infrastructure. In terms of training facilities and that, we have world-class facilities, but possibly in and about the pocket of that. There's obviously things that we could do, but I think in terms of that, we're more likely to improve on things like sports science and stuff like that. It's not going to be huge amounts of money that is noticeable, but I do think that our money will be banked for rainy day with mostly squad spending and maybe one or two things that help the squad, as I say, sports science, equipment and stuff like that. They recently done up the gyms and stuff at the complex. We should state-of-the-art equipment and stuff. So they are doing things like that, but it's not costing millions, So to answer the question, I don't think infrastructure is going to really come into it. It's going to be save, spend, squad, and maybe stuff that will aid the squad. I think youth, women's team, infrastructure and around the stadium, they're secondary. They're niceties, not necessities.
It's an interesting one, Johnny. It's a long and complex thing, but I think when you're reading David's original point, it just shows you there is still going to be fans that are very excited by what Celtic can achieve, but also just wanting to make sure the pressure remains on Celtic to do the utmost to, achieve the impossible or whatever the next step in our development, even is a better way to put it. It's not the impossible. The next stage for Celtic, getting to that next level, and that will require investment. And if the club's got the money, as the optics seem to suggest they do, and handsomely do, to take the club maybe to that next stage of the development. I think there will be a turn slightly for the fan base, not necessarily everyone. I see a bit of balance in the comments, people saying it could upset harmony, having a higher earned player. I mean, if you've got guys like that pisses off for the club. You've not got the right squad. You know, that's not they shouldn't be part of it, because that's just not going to help any club progress. You can't bow to that sort of thing, in my opinion. But Johnny, there will be a turning of the heads a wee bit if Celtic post the end of year profits accounts, which they'll need to do in X amount of months, and you start seeing turnover of 100 million, cash reserves of 70 million, whatever it could be. And these are pie in the sky numbers I'm throwing about here, of course. But as that pot seemingly seems to increase, of course there's going to be people then going, well, what are we going to do with it, guys? Let's get the heads together. Let's see some sort of evidence of that being spent.
Obviously, you can only keep filling that pot so long before, and you've got to spend money at some point. You can't keep it all in the bank. And I'll quite fully admit, lads, I'm one of these supporters who looks more at what we put on the field and players wise. But you've got to appreciate that to attract quality players, you need to have quality facilities for these players as well. Training facilities at the stadium. Now, just after Spurs opened up their new stadium, my brother-in-law's a big Spurs man, and we went for a tour of the stadium, and I was just looking around it, and honestly, I don't know if anybody's ever been in there, seen it, but it's absolutely awesome. And I said to my brother-in-law, I said, if you're a professional footballer and Spurs brought you in here, showed you around these facilities, you'd be signing on the dotted line before you walked out, because that will attract quality players to come in. But as I've said, I'll freely admit, I more look at who we have in players on the park. But as well as the money and the position in the team, you do need to provide them with the top facilities for the training facilities, treatment facilities for injuries, just all of that. And some of it's got to get spent on that, yeah. How much, like you said, Steve, the infrastructure to do the hotel would empty the bank. So they've not got enough money to do it is in that same massive way, but they've got to try and spend some of the money spread out, providing facilities that will benefit the players at all levels, whether it be first team, B team, the ladies team. I believe the ladies team, they meant to be having something done at Barrowfield. They talk about that, but nothing's ever kicked off about it, is it?
They got permission, didn't they, to build a grandstand and a training facility and an indoor 11-a-side pitch for the first team. But that again has went to the back burner. I don't Peter Lawwell's back, so you forget that.
Just to touch on that briefly, I think in terms of, even though I don't think they'll do it, if that was something that they would want to do, I think that there's a wee gap in the market there with all these sort of fans and stuff are going more often to reserve games, the women's team games and stuff like that. If they could get somewhere like you had at Lower Hampden, just one sort of low line, or even like Peters Hill, something similar like Peters Hill Sports Ground in Glasgow, something like that, with a self-contained sort of dressing room area with maybe like a bar or something like that, and a stand. Make that the go-to place for the your youth team or your reserve team, as it were, your youth teams, your female games, and just have, it could be on your season ticket. If you're a season ticket holder, give someone nominal a £5 in any of these games, open up the bar, capitalise on it, make it pay its way. Totally. Because if Celtic are away, ladies are now playing an early kick-off, why not do both? So, in terms of infrastructure, I think that's maybe the most realistic one that they would maybe tap into, because of the sort of, why pay to play Airdrie, Excelsior? Why do that? Why farm that money?
That main stand first. That main stand's a dump. I mean, that main stand's got 2 toilets in the full, but I think they can't even buy a pie in it. So that main stand for the people who are paying the extra money is an absolute dump. All I hear is complaints about it, and they're refusing to spend. They're trying to say it's harder to get planning permission, and there's structural things. It's just a lot of shite. They just don't want to spend the money. I mean, honestly, I agree with what John says. That don't get us wrong, Spurs Stadium is pure soulless because they share it with an American football team, and they just change the colours depending on who's playing there and all the rest of it. I don't like that, but I wish Celtic would get into the modern vibe and start digitalising the outside it a wee bit, make it look a bit more less 90s, although I think Celtic Park is a facade, the Celtic way, and then the structure itself. When you walk up towards that, I don't care if you play for Bayern Munich or Spartans, you've got to be impressed with that. It's like a coliseum. Definitely, it's so impressive. But there's so many things you've got to do. You can't go. See, you go to a away game, you're actually impressed when you're washing your hands, which is quite important to me, right? And the water's hot. See here, it's at part the water's cold. You can't get a hand towel. You can never get soap. Things just stupid things like that. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, you're in Spurs and you put your glass down and the pipe pours for you. You know what I mean? Fuck's sake. You can't get hot water.
Last thing I need. That's the last thing I need. Johnny, you were saying you want to talk football, mate. You prefer on the park. Well, there's a game this weekend. We're at home to the High Bees. You know, wee Lee Johnson. I wonder what jacket he'll wear this time. Don't know if you remember that grey sort of big blazer thing he wore last time. But Johnny, with that in mind, though, the game this Saturday, obviously before the international break, you want to go into that on a high. And of course, we've got the slightly different scenario. I mean, Jonathan kind of touched on it on Tuesday. The slightly different scenario, of course, in fact, it was last night on the bus stop I touched on it. We're playing first this weekend. Hurrah! Hooray! Let's do it. And you've got to remember, whilst Celtic seems to be able to handle the pressure of, you know, playing second and the gap only being 6 points and 1 million goals, they always seems to have got it back up to 9 points. Now, the thing is, we could go 12 points clear. I described it as eye-watering last night. It's the type thing that sounds, see, once it becomes double digits, Johnny, it's got to have a psychological blow. That it's got to be, they're fucking leaving us for dust. What sort of motivation does that give Rangers? Win the next day and you can cut the gap to 9 points and 1 million goals. I mean, it must, you know, it's a very interesting opportunity Celtic find themselves having this Saturday. They've not been afforded as many times as Rangers this season. I actually went through every month in the WhatsApp group chat, if you remember, and since then, Rangers have actually played before us another 2 times, Mark.
Rangers play a half 12 on Saturday.
Your theory, do they?
Aye. Half 12 tomorrow. They do. Half 12 tomorrow.
Saturday?
On Saturday, yep.
They're playing first again?
Yeah, right.
I did that out. Right, anyway, there's no pressure, Johnny. We're
I just couldn't keep it letting it roll.
Right,
Couldn't do it. Sorry, Bob.
I'll see you all later. Anyway, cheers. Johnny, I think we're playing football on Saturday.
I think we'll deal with the pressure of trying to increase that gap back up to 9. No problem on Saturday afternoon, Bhoycie.
That's what I said, was it no? I said that the pressure that comes from Celtic, that's the one. I genuinely thought they were playing the Sunday. There you go. You can't accuse me of being obsessed with Rangers then. It just goes to show you. But Johnny, the game against Hibs brings up the same opportunity it does every other weekend, a chance to extend the gap back to 9 points, mate. Look forward to
it. Well, I don't. To be fair, I don't think there's any pressure. To be fair, I think we should stroll to a nice comfortable victory on the Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock, a couple of hours after Rangers have closed it a little bit, or maybe not.
You never know. Mark, you look forward to Saturday. You'll be there, of course. It's an opportunity to get the gap back to 9 points, is it not?
That's what I was thinking all week, boys. Just like you said there, mate. I can't remember. You know, this season's probably seen us play maybe, I don't know, 2-3 times maximum before then, and that's listen. Don't get any illusions here. That's set up so that the gap, if they're ahead of us, it puts pressure on us. If they're behind us, it puts less pressure on them. That's exactly why that's. I mean, if we played it to 12:30 on Saturday, they play at 6 in the morning. It doesn't matter when we play; they'll play before us. I mean, 12:30 on Saturday. I mean, remember we were playing just there a couple weeks ago, and they played a Saturday 3 o'clock, and we played Saturday at 3 o'clock. I think it was, and I was like, I've not seen that since the 90s. You know what I mean? I was like, when have I seen that happening? And genuinely don't remember a season like this before. I think the SFA have realised how important this season has been for Rangers, and they thought, right, we can't give Celtic a second. I don't care how this sounds. We can't give Celtic a second crack at the Champions League without all that money. And there'll probably be obstacles in the way, VAR coming in early, referees. This just backs it up, boys. Celtic have got opportunity to bring it back to 9 points. I'm going to assume they win at Motherwell because I think Motherwell are great shakes, although their manager has increased their performances a wee bit, but I think they just lost the game there, I think. Might be wrong. Quite interestingly, Celtic won the Cup 2 weeks ago, and the press managed to give a guy who joined halfway through the month the manager of the month manager of the month trophy, and it was a Motherwell manager. What's his name? Him he's a big grease bagger. I think I'm looking forward to Saturday's game. I think we'll probably see a lot of colour because it's St Patrick's weekend, so you'll probably see a lot of the new strips. Folk will be shown after strips. There'll be tricolours all over the place, and I think Celtic will come out and have their usual home performance. You know what I mean? All dominating, plenty of attacking, and hopefully plenty of goals for the Celtic.
Steve-O, you've got the fixture list in front of you. Clearly, look forward to Saturday, mate.
I'm alright, so I'm going to the game as well. So I'll be down the boozer behind enemy lines in Motherwell at this kick-off, and I'll watch a wee bit of the Rangers game, I dare say, before I leave. I'm not expecting anything from Motherwell, but I'm expecting us to roll over Hibs. And come on, they get smashed off Rangers, didn't they, at home? So we should be doing the same at Parkhead. Nice wee way to go into before the Snorefest and grimness that is an international break. But now, I'm expecting a very robust performance. I saw a few folk talking about the notion that should be rest players. Absolutely not. Full force, all the best players at the start.
Yep.
Get it dead and buried. Get the proverbial body bags out at half time, and then ring the changes if you want to experiment a bit. But nah, just take care of every game as it comes. Treat it the exact same way. No messing about. The Hearts game going to be done with the bit of the experiment, and that was just nonsense. And then when we changed it back to normal, it was just normal service resumes. And that's what we've got to keep doing. That's that. So, no, I'm expecting a healthy win. I'm expecting at least 3 goals clear, or something like that.
Absolutely fair enough, Steve-O. Absolutely fair enough. Johnny, one other point that we're going to discuss before we wrap up was, we were talking off air about, obviously the Japanese selection, or lack of selection of Celtic players, you could say. We were talking on Tuesday about international football, its pros and cons. Not because I am particularly enamoured with international football. I was trying to look at it from a bigger picture point of view, that it might put off players if they don't think they're going to get that recognition for their international team playing at Celtic. Now, interestingly, the Japan manager has apparently sort of gave some sort of negative opinion on the standard of the league that the Japanese contingent at Celtic are playing in. Yet he calls up Maeda, which, obviously is a complete contradiction in terms straight away off the bat. Hatate and Kyogo, again, I think it will give great copy for the MSM to be saying, we're not called up again. Either they're not good enough and they can sort of try and, fling mud at them that way, or it could be, I wonder if they'll have an eye on the exit because they're not getting these call-ups and they would if they were playing for Brighton and Hove Albion or something. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I look at it and go, it's the manager's gift to pick whoever he wants. I think what we need to remember here is we're pig ignorant to the level of quality that Japan's producing. The footballers they've obviously got to select from. I think their World Cup squad, there was Maeda and one other that weren't in the top 5 big leagues in Europe, some mad stat like that. So we need to get real here. This could be the manager's got a settled squad. He's got loyalty to certain individuals, and the form that he's seen from attack, Kyogo will be acutely aware of, but isn't going to bring them into his squads for crucial games. It's one of those things. But can you imagine there being a few different narratives getting spun with regards to that when you see, because they've obviously been such standouts in our league as well? I think that's what maybe raises all the eyebrows initially.
I'm quite happy that they're not getting picked, to be honest with you. If they're not getting picked for Japan, then it's just one less injury concern over the international break, which I didn't even realise was coming up, to be honest with you. But no, I'm quite happy that they're not going. Just like you said, we're very ignorant to not just what's going on in Japanese leagues, but in lots of other leagues around Europe and Australia and whatever, like, you know. So I'm just quite happy that they're not going. And I don't know if they might be disappointed about not getting picked, especially Hatate, he's younger, but I don't think they'll be devastated. I don't think they'll start knocking on doors saying, I need to go and play in a bigger league. Because at the end of the day, as you said, the only one who did get picked, Maeda, which came as a surprise to all of us, but he was the one that the English punters during the World Cup were raving about at the World Cup. But he plays in Scotland, but Les Ferdinand and that, they were raving about him.
Les Ferdinand, big Rio.
Rio. Rio. But he was raving about him. He thought, you know, he'd never seen nothing like it. He just complete buzz bomb. Because he was ignorant to Scottish football, was much like anybody else. Because he must have been if he didn't already know that Maeda was a buzz bomb. But no, I'm quite happy they're not going to playing this international grade. More than happy.
Yeah, I think that's the argument from our point of view. The selfishness, Mark, is of course you don't want these guys risking getting injured at international duty. I'm all for that argument. I get that. What I was trying to suggest the other night, of course, was try to put go into the players' shoes or boots and go like, you know, that's a bit frustrating that I'm not playing. I could see these narratives getting spun by the media now, right? That it could be players getting upset they're not getting called up and have been told if they were in a bigger league they would be. I think the line spun by the manager, there was a load of nonsense, as David Kelly's saying there in the comments, because obviously Maeda being selected and being a starter for them, well, you know, what league's he playing in, as David's saying? Do you know what I mean? It makes no odds. Also, one of the other narratives I'm noticing about the league, being pushed, of course, from the country, our leagues, which is our national league is, of course, has the gap ever been bigger between Celtic and Rangers and the rest? Is this the poorest the clubs have ever been in history? Again, I think it's attempts at a wee bit downplaying how good Celtic's been this year, if I'm honest with you. But your take on both those?
I think the players that came to Celtic came to progress their careers. They didn't come to progress their international chances. If they thought they could do that in Japan, they'd have stayed in Japan. They came to Celtic to progress their chances of getting to England, or at least get a chance to play in European football. They didn't come because they wanted to play mere cards for Japan. That's obviously a career highlight for some people. Doesn't mean it's the be all and end all. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Kyogo would rather play. Well, I don't know. I'm saying this, and I'm pretty sure that some players would rather play a campaign in the Champions League than 2 or 3 qualifiers. To be quite honest with you, for some World Cup. But anyway, I don't think this isn't a new thing. There's been players not getting capped for Holland, Sweden, Abdi, because of it playing in the Scottish League. I mean, we all know Fraser Foster should have had 50 caps for England, but a big part of that was because he was playing for Celtic for a good few years, and they don't look at it seriously. And do you know what? That's up to them. Personally, I think it's a good thing for Celtic, for the players we've got just now, because come these international breaks, you're not sitting there shiting yourself for the newspapers saying that somebody's ripped somebody's fucking metatarsal or something like that, you know what I mean? And you're like, oh no. Personally, I think the press were talking about the players at Celtic being unsettled at full time in the cup final just there. They're going to do that. I mean, they've got to deflect away from the fact that Celtic are playing good football. It's funny this narrative only gets spun about players being unhappy when Celtic win. I don't see Rangers squad depth being questioned about finding pockets of the game time for the players on the periphery when Rangers are winning. It's just a way of deflecting how good Celtic are. And to be quite honest with you, it's an age-old tactic that the Scottish press used to at least put some fear factor in the Celtic fans' minds that everything isn't as rosy as they think. Do you know what? See if our players are getting scouted for bigger leagues and better teams. That's good. That means they're performing at a high level for Celtic. If there's players not getting picked for the national team, it's not because they're playing for Celtic. It's because they're playing in the Scottish League. That's fine. But to quash any fears about Celtic no signing players because it might hinder their international careers, that's been happening since day one, since at least money came into football. But you know what? None of the players that came into Scotland, Hatate, Maeda, Kyogo, or any other player that's come into Celtic for that league to progress their international chances, they've come in to progress their career, progress their potential earnings, and progress their profile within European football. Their international football is way down the list of priorities, I'm afraid.
And Steve-O, just on that, the reputation of the league, and I think Mark's got a point. I mean, there's been a history. Alan Thompson was another one. They had a left side problem, England, and we're looking at a guy who's supplying 20 goals out of Hendrick's 50 in a season. Do you know what I mean? For the left-hand side, effectively scoring double figures every year as well. And you're going, how is he not the answer on the left for England? It just seemed bizarre. But of course, you know, because he's doing it in the Scottish League, albeit he was scoring against the likes of Barcelona, Liverpool, etc. That didn't count for much, Stuttgart. But anyway, I digress. There's been, obviously, as Mark's alluding to, a history of seeing this, right? Now, that's one thing. But when you've now got almost all the, whether it be the radio broadcasts, whether it be in the papers, whether it be pundits, ex-players, the gap's never been bigger. It's never been so big between Celtic. Is that just another way of trying to almost downplay what Celtic have achieved this season, which has been fucking brilliant? Look at the football we're playing. There's not many seasons in my memory where this Celtic side wouldn't be top of the table. Do you know what I mean? I don't understand. Like, is Scottish football suddenly like fell off a cliff this year when it's the first summer Aberdeen spent nearly £2 million on transfer fees, for example? That's just one example, by the way. You know, you look at it and you go, is everything just like suddenly everything's getting poo-pooed right now because what? Celtic's on fire. It feels a wee bit like that. You know, I can take it from the Japan manager, right? When I think about it, I go, okay, there's a track record of that with other international managers turning their nose up. And again, you kind of have to laugh at him as well when he's picking Maida and he's starting 11 anyway. So he's just made a fool of himself. But when you're getting it from within, you can't help just feel it stinks a wee bit. And you're like, well, hold on now. You know, Scottish football was brilliant 2 years ago, I dare say, when there was no fans in the ground and everyone was skint. Do you know what I mean? I dare say if Scottish football was healthy then, when a team went unbeaten that year, conceded 7 goals in the league. They were a brilliant team. But now, of course, Scottish football is at its lowest ebb and the teams have never been so far away. It just feels at times like, oh, shut up and just give us the credit that we deserve when we're due it.
You know, it's a merry-go-round. It changes like the weather, the opinion on it. You know, Scottish football, from in its own, the way it gets marketed by, you know, ourselves as a country and SPFL and whatever, and then pundits, it's all depends on. We must wake up in the morning, look at the window, and go, "All right, Celtic are Rangers are shite today. Celtic are brilliant. Everybody else is hopeless." Or if they're really close, just depends on what they want to sell. Whether it's a newspaper or get folk phoning in like Hugh Keevins to moan at you on the radio, say son all sweeping. You know, it's another thing that I don't take much notice of. You know, that's poo-pooing of the league. We're talking about managers and things like that. I can forgive the whole England thing. Yes, it was ignorance to the talent of these guys, for example. But see when they've got such all right, they had a crisis with the left side, but see when they've got such a real body, amazing players to choose for, you can understand they're going to overlook it, right? See all these other countries, right? They probably don't have that same wealth of talent, so it's a wee bit irritating when they maybe shoot it down. But no, listen, I just think the gap has never been bigger than that. That's strange because I was hearing not too long ago that Rangers are really close to Celtic again, and you know what is it? You can't have your cake and eat it. You know, they can't be breathing down their neck. I dare say it ain't going to happen. Rangers beat Celtic in the semi-final. They're back. The gap isn't that. You know, so what do you want? If they get hammered, oh, it's a joke. It's a Farmers League. It's a joke. You know, Rangers are falling off a cliff, and so you know that's it. There's no rhyme or reason. I can't even articulate what I'm trying to say here, other than it's just moron speak. There's no other way. Should moron speak depending on how they feel on a given day and what narrative they want to push? And it's probably it's just clickbait, mate. It's just absolute clickbait. Do I think the gap's as big as it's ever been? Honestly, no, I don't. You can't say that when you're winning quadruple trebles and stuff like that. It's simply,
I think it's poor, mate. I think the league's really, really poor. I think the standard of players this league is really, really poor. But that's not to do with Celtic's ability to show up every day and give 100%. Celtic have increased the gap between themselves and Rangers by just being on it 24/7. Every match is like a very important match for the Celtic players. They put in the work Monday to Friday, and then you see the evidence of that work on a Saturday. That's Celtic's. That's Celtic's credit at 100%. That's all Celtic. The level of opposition could be higher, and we still beat them. But I look at teams and I go, I mean, now it's becoming almost teams getting applauded after the park at Celtic Park now if they're having a shot at goal, because you go, well, at least they tried this week, and you go, really, is that the barometer now for this league, that if they come out and say, well, at least they tried? And I don't think that's a barometer that's high enough for a league and our standard. It should be a league our standard. I personally think that our country, our press will use any excuse to belittle Celtic's achievements. I mean, don't forget, when Brendan Rodgers was there, the press was saying, aye, but the Celtic fans are getting bored of winning all the time. You know what I mean? And they tried it with O'Neill, they tried it with Stratton. It's as if they've got to find some sort of way of trying to put a bit of shit in Celtic's conflicts, you know what I mean? And it doesn't work. It just makes us laugh, and it just makes us more conscious of the fact that they'll use every trick in the book because they hate us, but it makes every time we hold up a shiny trophy a bit more delightful in my eyes, because the fact that they hate the fact the grass is green just makes the fact that we win even more better for me.
Mark, did you ever get bored? Because we used
No.
to get that. People at my work used to say to me when I worked on the buses, they'd say, you must get bored winning every week and winning all the trophies.
Why would you?
How can you get bored winning?
Makes you want more.
Yeah.
I mean, as they saying, did you get bored of earning a lot of money? No, you want more.
You just to jump.
To ask a millionaire if they got enough money, he'll say, no, I want more.
No,
Johnny, you've been watching Scottish football, you know, and following Celtic longer than us. That's not an ageist comment, by the way. Just you have. I mean, has it not been like this for a considerable period of time, over 30 years, since a club outside Celtic or the previous Rangers, the new Rangers, any former Rangers have won the league either? I mean, when you look at that, I mean, yeah, okay, this season it might look like the standard isn't as high or whatever, but I struggle to think of times where you go, oh, they were really hot on our tails this year, you know, Hibs or whatever. It's never been like that. You know, even when you get slightly romantic about other teams when you go, by the way, mind when Hibs had that really good team. I'm just using Hibs as an example. You know, they had Bruni, Thompson, they had Riordan, O'Connor. That was a right good team, that, eh? Where did they finish in reality where Celtic were in the league? Miles behind as well then, Johnny. Let's not mince our words here. There's always been a fair big gap between the rest of Scottish football and where Celtic sees them since, you know, the mid-90s. I think we only finished second 3 out of Rangers 9 in a row. Not that they like to remember that point, but I always like to push that one home. But since, you know, certainly the turn of the millennium, that's had 23 seasons. Even when these teams look on paper, or when you reflect on a Bustalgia, you go, oh, that Hearts team was pretty good under George Burley. You know, they split the old firm as it was then in the league. And it's like, I know, but really, when Celtic put the foot down, they finished winning that league pretty comfortably as well. There's never really been many seasons, and this is me trying to pick examples here of what maybe were exceptional sides lower in the league. Do you know what I mean? Just to sort of bring a bit of balance to the argument. The reality is we're always going to be considerably further ahead than the rest of the league. And I just think always trying to downplay it and talk about it like, because the rest of the league's poor. I can't help but feel, from a Celtic point of view, that is undeniably to diminish our achievements. And what potentially, it almost feels like, you know, a treble's on the horizon. You can see it happening again. You can't stomach us going back to doing what we did, as Mark was talking about under Brendan Rodgers, for example, and then latterly Neil Lennon. You can't handle quadruple trebles. So instead, let's get the narrative set now. It's because Scottish football's shite. It's so transparent, really, when you talk about it.
You know, teams don't push on. That for me is, we've spoken about Celtic spending money to develop. Teams that have had a good season or whatever don't push on for it. Look at when Aberdeen were the second best team and we get into all these finals and stuff. All right, they weren't really close to us in the league, but they were performing at a level that was making it competitive, making it halfway decent. They didn't push on. They didn't invest in their squad any or do it, and that's what we're seeing across the board. You know, it's like, just take Hibs, for example, get these guys in, and it's just this merry-go-round, the managers and players, and none of them really invest to make themselves better. They might be one good season, and then they take that as a win and just hope the same formula is going to work next year. And so it's across the board. We are considerably richer than y'all than most of them. So, do you know what I mean? That's the problem. We are literally that guy. And
right.
We'll always get that thrown at us. But it's down to other teams to take whatever resources they've got, try and make themselves better as well.
Johnny, just before we go, David Kelly, again, I brought up loads of his comments tonight. It's not favouritism or anything. It just happens to be something that I've found engaging when I've been reading them. Like this one as well. Johnny, take it away, because Bayern are on for 10 in a row. Barcelona and Real Madrid win everything. It was a freak season almost when Atletico Madrid won the league a few years ago. Liverpool, Man City, completely dominant down south, breaking records. PSG, you know, are a shoe-in for Ligue 1 almost every single season. It's not that, and Juventus did what, 8 in a row? 9 in a row, did they do as well? Until nice.
Listen, lads, I can tell you now, right? What David Kelly's been doing is absolutely right. The only thing that really changes is in the Premiership. And I've said to people down here, I've been living in Lincoln 20 years, and I've been telling them the Premiership effectively is a 2-horse race. It's just sometimes the horses change. You know, generally it was Man United and Arsenal, or Man United and Leeds. Man United, Blackburn 1 year. Blackburn managed to shove their way in. You know, I said, so don't go run away with the idea that 5 or 6 teams can win that Premiership, because you can look at it and think, well, they should all, at the start of the season, they should all be capable of doing that. But it invariably turns into 2 at best, a 3-horse race with a 3rd horse falling away at the 5th from home hurdle. So it's nothing new for any league in Europe to be effectively dominated by 1, potentially 2 teams. The only thing that's different is in the Premiership, because of the stupid amounts of money that's thrown about down here, that another horse can push in 1 year. You might get one staple horse, such as Man City at the minute, such as Man United back in the day, Arsenal when they had their little spell. But it's nothing new to have 2-horse races.
And they did an invincible season, you know?
What was that?
Arsenal did an invincible season.
Yeah.
You know, that's a lot of history.
See, these things, these apply to scores as well. Like, look at Man United getting absolutely hammered. The Premier League's amazing. Look at all these goals we're getting. Right? Celtic go and beat somebody 5 or 6-0, and it's a Farmers League. Shite. They just get hammered.
You can't win. You can't win, man.
We don't need the validation. We don't need the Scottish press or the English press validation to enjoy Celtic victories. I don't need it. We don't need it. You know what I mean? Never have needed it. And to be honest with you, it doesn't make our victory any sweeter or any worse that the English press or whatever care about it or diminish it. Far from it. I think it makes it better than when we play them in Europe and we give them a wee scare, because they realise that they're not as good as they think they are. I mean, Liverpool lost 7 goals. I think to who was it? They only could beat 7 there. Oh, that was Man U. They lost 5 against Real Madrid at home. Just shows you where they are in Europe. You know what I mean? These are the teams that seem like they win it.
Yeah.
So,
well, on that note, Celtic will just keep doing what they do. The bus will keep doing what it does. Thanks to everyone who's joined us in the forum tonight. 147 sitting there. Remember, smash that like button, subscribe, slag my hair. Didn't get me to redo fixture lists ever again because I don't have a clue what I'm talking about. But yeah, as a treble potentially looms, are you bored yet?
When you've all that stuff at the start, you know, they won't be playing Tina Turner on the coach on the way home, will they?
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan. He's a Rangers puppet. He's a cheerleader. That's what he is.